Welcome to Collecting Consciousness, where we aim to capture the ever-expanding and evolving conscious creations that originate from the minds of fellow podcasters, strangers, dear friends, and loved ones.
In this podcast, we will expand on our inner wisdom and a coming home to self. From our conscious minds to yours, we welcome you to the Collecting Consciousness.
Awesome. Here we are with another episode of Collecting Consciousness in a little different of a setting, and here to talk about a really important topic. How does the wind sound?
I don't hear the wind. It's
okay.
okay.
I just want to make sure because I feel like it's like really strong right now.
I can see you. I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted. Okay. It's cool. It's cool by you being in the sun, you can like really see your aura right now.
Neat.
Before we lead into it, let's just give you a little. Can you just tell us where you are?
Yeah. So I'm at Seaside Heights, New Jersey.
Jersey Shore.
The Jersey Shore. Yeah, this is a family vacation spot for my entire life. Like, actually, this is a cool story, real quick. We're staying in a home. The home that we're renting right now is right across the street from the same house that I rented or stayed in when I was 2 weeks old.
Oh my gosh.
So
cool.
I've literally been coming here since I was a baby.
So cool. Yeah, one of the pictures you showed us in the inner child, you were at the Jersey Shore with your grandfather. Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it's been a family thing for a long time. So I haven't been in probably like 5 years or maybe more. I can't remember. So it's been really special. So I'm here with my mom and our families, and so it's been really fun. So I'm sitting on the beach up at the top, at the boardwalk, up the boardwalk. If you know, you know.
And also, you're gonna be going to the Jersey Shore house, aren't you? You're gonna do the tour.
Yeah, me, because you're gonna go. I think we're gonna go. Yeah,
that's gonna be awesome. That's awesome.
John actually brought it up, so I was like, I'll go to the Jersey Shore house.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, anyways, so that's where I am. And if it's a little windy, I apologize, but nobody else is up in the house that we stay at the hour that we're recording this. So I'm going to be out in the sun, just enjoying it. So we have a really sweet episode today. And before we get started, I'd like to test out the new breath work that we learned recently and guide us into a little bit of a different way to tap into our bodies and into our what we and Courtney learned recently, our Dantian, which is our energy center that sits around below the navel, your belly button. And so on the count of 3, I invite you to exhale. 3, 2, 1. Emptying the breath all the way out. And then pausing at the very bottom for at least 2 counts. 2, 1, inhaling, allowing the breath to just gently enter into the body, allowing it to fill up the belly and the chest. When you get to the very top of this breath, holding for 2 counts, maybe more. So you feel that pressure build, exhaling gently, allowing all the breath to leave the body. You get to the bottom, holding for a count of 2, maybe more. Inhaling, so you feel that pressure build, allowing the breath to gently enter back into the body, not forcing it, not controlling it. At the top, pausing. And after a count of 2, exhaling. On the next inhale, allowing our breath to find its natural rhythm again. When we allow the exhale to be the first thing that we do, we release being in the past or the present, or sorry, being in the past or the future. We stay in the present, in the body. We release any tension that we're holding on to and anchoring into the present moment when we exhale as our first breath. So maybe noticing now if you feel a little less stressed, a little less worried, a little bit more at ease. Maybe you observe that that was a little difficult for you to exhale and you allow it to be what it is without judgment. As we sit here, allowing our breath to naturally flow in and out, I invite Courtney to set the space in the container for this episode.
Thank you, Bethany. Welcome to Collecting Consciousness. We welcome the sun, we welcome the moon, we welcome anything in between, above and below the earth. We welcome in setting the space for our needs, to communicate the things that feel right for us, to allow ourselves to stand strong in who we are, knowing our values, knowing our worth. We invite all to step into self, get to know self. What is it that you need? What is it that you want? Can you allow your soul to lead the way? We welcome our Dantian, our energy center, our force. All you have to do is set the intention, I am connected to my Dantian. I allow my Dantian to lead the way with breath. So let us tap in to what it is that we need and we want. From our conscious minds to yours, we welcome you to Collecting Consciousness. And when you're ready, let us jump into another episode. I think today's episode is episode 12, perhaps, or 13.
13, I think it's 13.
13, yeah, 13. So very cool. So today's episode, we are going to be talking about types of boundaries. And so we're going to be going into the categories of boundaries. We're going to be expressing what these different types are, but we're going to also be what we like to do, bring our funky selves in and tap into our own personal experience and see how we are showing up, how we are integrating boundaries, where we may be lacking, and where we want to go with our boundaries. Because, hey, boundaries are tough. Boundaries can be a little on the shaky side, especially when you're not used to giving boundaries. So no judgment for where you're at, and just be proud of where you're at. So leading in with that, I'm just going to be talking about a couple of types of different boundaries. So we have healthy boundaries, we have no boundaries, we have rigid boundaries, and we have loose boundaries. So I'll start with rigid boundaries. So someone who has rigid boundaries, this person is often afraid to let others come close to them. They kind of don't ask for help. They don't seek help. They do a lot of things on their own, and they often don't feel comfortable being intimate, being close with others. Rigid boundaries also are, they have really strict rules, And that's a form of protection in order to not get hurt. So, and with that also, rigid boundaries also, you often kind of taper on the emotionally detached or withdrawn. Yeah, bookmark it. I'm here for it.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So for the rigid boundary, like, just to like kind of tap in a little bit more and expand on like how, what type of people fall more into this creation of boundary, because I think like we've all been led to a certain point in our lives at, you know, wherever you are listening to this podcast, like you have some relationship with boundaries, and one of these types is probably what you are. So it's like, what type of person, what type of experiences in life do you think leads somebody to create rigid boundaries?
So
like, is it that they've been like hurt or
yeah. So they have, yeah. So what I think it would really kind of taper into attachment theory as well. So attachment theory, and we could do an episode on this someday soon. Guys, attachment theory is really how you show up in relationships, whether it be intimate, family, friends, and you either have secure attachment, you are maybe anxious, you're fearful avoidant, and you're dismissive avoidant. So there's different types of attachment theory. So yeah, Bethany, I would say that rigid boundaries would come from like a dismissive avoidant, somebody who has been hurt in the past, who has been rejected, because like their shields are up, because they do things on their own because nobody was really there for them in the past. When they did try to show up and say like, I need help, they were dismissed. So it's safer for them to build up walls and keep you out and just do it all on their own. So often an avoidant attachment or a dismissive avoidant
will have rigid boundaries.
Would have rigid boundaries.
That type of attachment style.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to just like highlight this is because it's like, you know, oftentimes it's easy to take boundaries personal. So I would say that if I knew somebody that was a rigid boundary setter, like you may find them like offensive, or you might find it like that it hurts you. And it's, so I always feel like it's important to like throw context into like, okay, somebody most likely isn't that way because they chose it from a healthy, self-loving place. It's from a place of protection and fear. And so I always feel like it's nice to like have the layer of perspective of just, where did this person come from? Like, why are the boundaries being set like this? It's not because of me. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like not taking it personal kind of thing.
Totally.
So,
the compassionate side, you know, the compassionate side of you, it's like stepping in and like, it really is, there's a good book called The Four Agreements, and one of the agreements is to not take things personally. And I highly recommend that book. Is it Richard?
No. It's Miguel.
Roger
Ruiz.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, really good book. But it is like, you know, in this last year, I feel like I've really been kind of like the last couple of years I've learned about attachment theory, and so now I've just been trying to integrate these things, and it's like trying to not take things personal, because like, you know, my heart can hurt sometimes, and I can really take things on, but it's like to realize that, oh, the way that this person is treating me, reacting, it's a reflection of what's going on in their inner world. And it kind of like it going into like, you know, you like to get the context, you like to get the layer. It's not black and white, you know, like some of these things are black and white, but there's so much gray area. And when we live in a gray area, we can be open for like expansive energy where we're like, oh, hey, you know what? I'm not going to take this personal, because the way that this person is going, there was a reason for that. Because nobody at their core wants to be like harsh or cold or detached. It's just from these experiences in life that have built up these walls. So, And that's the thing with boundaries. It's like, you may learn that, oh, hey, I might be a little bit rigid with my boundaries. Let me try and learn how to be a little bit more healthy. And let's be real, we're human. We will sometimes fall back into like a rigid boundary, but it's an indicator, oh, okay, I still have some more leaning in to do. So like, really just soften yourself with wherever you are in your boundary setting.
Yeah, that was really cool to touch on. Because, yeah, if you're listening to this, you're like, oh man, that is me. And you feel any kind of guilt or like you shouldn't be here, instead of that feeling of I shouldn't be this, like be more curious as to why am I this way? Because that will lead you to the growth. Yeah. Anyways, great. That was great. That was great,
cool.
Court.
Cool. Yeah, that was good, Beth. That was good with you. I love it. I love all your bookmarks. I can hear you. I can feel you. I can see the finger going up. I'm like, oh yeah, let's see what she has in her mind. Okay, so then we can just taper into no boundaries. And that just means where our sense of self, our own property, our needs are just getting completely stomped all over. Like there are no boundaries. You are allowing people to come in, take advantage of you, use you, and like that's a hard thing to sit with, in the sense of we all have needs, and it's all okay to express our needs. And if this person doesn't get your needs, well, that's an indicator that this person may not be for you. So really, wherever you're at, just kind of see, what is it that I need? Like, what are my needs and my values? And just start with that and start to learn, oh, hey, I think I need to put a boundary in place because I'm kind of feeling some resentment right now. So that's just a no boundary. That's just no boundaries right there. And then let's get into loose boundaries. Oh, yep, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. So that's no boundaries.
That's just no boundaries at all. And like, honestly, I find no boundaries and loose kind of taper into the same thing. But the loose boundaries are often, again, feeling very taken advantage of. And like, when you feel resentful, that is an indicator that you are not expressing a need, you are not expressing a boundary. So, and maybe you don't even know what that boundary, like maybe something happens, you have a experience and something happens with a loved one, family, friend, and you just feel so taken advantage of. Sit with it, lean into it. If you don't know what it is, just like try and get curious, start just meditating, just close your eyes, just breathe into your dantian and just sit and be like, okay, what sort of need is not being fulfilled right now? And then you can start to learn, okay, if I'm feeling resentful, there's a boundary that's being walked over. Oftentimes too, like loose boundaries, you have a difficulty time saying no to people. Also, you taper into the people-pleasing traits. You are often trying to fix people and their problems. And so, and then like, you'll often feel like your own needs are feeling neglected. So again, indicator that you're not expressing yourself fully. And, again, I think communication is a thing that people are really trying hard to build in their lives these days. And that's what we have to do. We just have to effectively communicate our needs, our wants, our desires to people. And if they can come in and if they can respect that, if they can sit with that, that's great. That's a good person in your field. If this person is trying to stomp all over your boundary setting, if this person is trying to make you feel guilty for putting up boundaries, that's an indicator that this person was getting from you not having boundaries. So it's just a really beautiful line of being like, where you're at on the spectrum.
Yeah. I definitely think that this is the type of person that I am and that I'm like trying to improve, but I definitely identify with the loose boundary setting. And it's interesting because it's interesting how, so for attachment style, is this also like an more of the anxious attachment? Anxious attachment, like where you're wanting that like
connection,
you're pleasing, making sure you're not like
you're also like so anxious, you're also like showing up for people, like, you know, you're really stepping in because you don't want them to leave you. You don't want that rejection. You know, oftentimes that when people put up these boundaries, we fear that, oh, by us putting up this boundary, we're going to feel rejected. They're going to leave us. So like the anxious is always craving for that reassurance, always craving for that closeness, that seeking of like, please come to me. And so that's going to be in those people pleasing tendencies for sure.
Yeah.
I would say,
go. No,
well, I was just going to say next episode, attachment theory.
Attachment theory, cool.
Yeah.
Because I don't know too much about it, but I'm learning about it, you know, surface level learning about it. But I would say too, like with all of these boundaries, like what comes to mind for me is like there is a spectrum too within each boundary type. Like, you know, where you can like, you might be a really loose boundary, et cetera. And then, you know, maybe you're getting tighter and tighter with them, and like healthier and healthier and healthier. Like, you know, maybe you're not a people pleaser, but you're like a fixer of people, or like you're not an anxious attachment fully, but like you do have tendencies to do that. So it doesn't have to be like, you're like, this is like
one or the other. Exactly. It's very gray. Like especially when you are starting to put in boundaries, like when you're starting, you can taper. Like when I started to put in boundaries, I was learning like, oh, I was going a little too rigid. And so it's you're going to go through waves and really just ride the waves and just be like, see if you're being assertive, not aggressive. See if you're softening. See if you're building up walls. Like just kind of allow yourself to feel in what feels right, what doesn't feel right. You know, like truly step into, okay, this sense of self feels like me. Oh, actually, I feel a little strict here. I feel like I'm putting a little bit too much rules here.
Yeah. That's important. I think that's really important, because if you've never put up boundaries before, like if you're a super loose boundary setter or no boundaries, and then you go to put them up, like, I think it can be really easy, especially if you're somebody that I think holds yourself like really accountable for change, and you want to make the shifts and you really want it and you're like hungry for it. I think it can kind of get like rigid before it gets healthy, because you're just like not sure how to do it. And then you're just like, okay, I'm just going to say no, and I'm just going to stick to this, and I'm going to be like that, you know, because you feel like that's what you're going to do. And that's what you should be doing. And I feel like I can connect with this like just quite a bit, because it's like I do really, it takes a lot of energy too to sit there and think about, okay, how can I say this that sounds softer but like holds the boundary for me, like holds the space and the boundary. And that takes a lot of thought, rather than just being like, no, I'm not going to go do that, or no, you can't come do this, or no, I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? Like
100%. One thing I've been trying to do in these last couple of years of like, you know, again, learning about attachment theory, learning about boundaries. It's like when I know that I'm about to have a difficult conversation, I like to invite in a peaceful, soft, gentle, communicative energy. And I like to surround it in my whole aura and just like allow a softness to come. Not always does it work. And again, because it's all about learning. It really is. And it is, it's like, because I feel like what you're saying, it's like, you know, when you're like, oh, I need to put up boundaries, because I also taper on those loose boundaries. And it's like, when you're finally starting to implement these boundaries, you're like, no, hard pass. You shall not pass, Gandalf the Grey. Like, it's not happening. So it's like, you have to really kind of play around with it and just inviting in that soft energy really does make a little bit of a shift. There was something I wanted to say about that too. Oh, I saw a meme. Oh, it was so funny. I literally placed in a boundary. And again, when you are someone that that's someone that has loose boundaries, fuck, does it ever feel so hard when you have to put up a boundary with a loved one? And like, guys, like, you're putting up boundaries. It's like, it's for you, it's for them. You know, if they value you, if they love you, if you love them, if you value them, it's healthy to put up boundaries. And it's healthy to say, hey, this doesn't jive with me. What you're doing actually kind of hurts me. Like, you're just letting people into your inner world. And truly, like, that's beautiful. But going back into like what I saw, I was like put up a boundary and it was really hard for me. And you go on the old social media and it's fucking reading your mind, and all of a sudden there's this hilarious meme of like it's like a little video, and it's like after you've just established a healthy boundary and he's there like eating cereal crying, and you're just I was like, fuck, do I ever feel that like that? That's hitting me right now, because it can be scary, it can be painful. And also I have learned too, like when I'm starting to put in these boundaries, sometimes I give up. Like sometimes when you feel that pushback with people, I have stopped my boundary. Really try hard not to do that, guys. And that's something I'm working on for myself, is to really like to put the boundary up. It's okay to put the boundary up. You have every right to express yourself. And if that person can't jive with you, that's an indicator that that person is not meant to be in your life anymore. So just know that it can be a little bit shaky grounds, but really stand true. If it doesn't feel right for you, it's not for you. Or it's, if it doesn't feel right, it's not meant for you.
Yeah. And I think that is a really cool thing to highlight, is that, and a really important, deep thing to highlight, is that not everybody is meant to be in your life. And I also wonder though, like when you do this with love and with a tactfulness, like that softness, if there's a way that we can all kind of guide each other more towards that boundary setting, like I'm almost even tapping into like wondering if, do you declare to maybe this person that you've never created boundaries with, that you love deeply, that you're like, okay, I'm really working on creating boundaries. Like I'm almost like, I always lean on the side of maybe being too wordy with things and being like, like almost over explaining, which I've heard is a form of people pleasing at the same time. So it's like, God knows you're in like this like double-edged sword situation where I'm like, okay, if I over explain, then I'm being a people pleaser. And if I don't, then I'm like having a hard time setting this boundary. So it's like, I don't know. I guess I'm just like, those are the things that go through my mind when I'm trying to do this, is like, I would rather, like, especially to someone I love, I'd rather be like, I'm really just trying to set up a healthy boundary right now. I really can't partake in this any longer, X, Y, and Z. Like, I love you for, I love you and I love myself. So that's why I'm doing this. Like, I don't know. I err on the side of too many words, probably.
Honestly, though, Bethany, like that sounded good to me. Like, but the thing is, like, it did sound really good and it sounded like very vulnerable. The only thing is that we can't control how the other person is going to react. So where are they at in their emotional state? Where are they at in their emotional intelligence? And that's kind of really is important in boundaries, is that where are people's emotional intelligence? Because they may take your because like oftentimes people take boundary setting personal. Like I had someone I knew that she would not really express that she was putting a boundary in. She would just kind of implement it, because when people hear I'm putting up a boundary, boom, someone takes that as a criticism. Somebody takes it as a harshness. Somebody takes that as a slight to them, a critic, like you're putting them down. So again, the thing is that we cannot control how another person reacts. But I do like you saying that. And if that loved one truly can be open and soften into that, you're really doing it for a place of love for yourself and a love for them. The only thing is that they may not be there with that emotional intelligence. So it's just, you may not get the response that you want to hear. And that's what's hard with boundary setting, because when somebody reacts not well to your boundary setting, that's where we lessen. And that's where we really, because there is, with healthy boundaries, there is being flexible and compromising at times, but you are still standing strong in your sense of self. But like when someone has pushback with your boundary, that's where people may really just like take their boundary out and not apply it. So it's a little bit of a battle. It's a little bit of a dance, a delicate dance of balance, of trying to find that little leeway of your boundary setting.
Yeah, I love what you said though. That is really important. that you can't control ultimately. Like the
Yeah.
bottom line is like,
Yeah.
and that's part of that people pleasing tendency at the same time, is that you want to control everybody's emotional reaction to the situation, and like you want it to be good. So like that is the one nugget that you just want to remember. And I think that was really good. Like you can never control, you can't, no matter how many like kind words you say to set your boundary, or how over you explain yourself. You're like, at the end of the day, you could still be mad about this. And so that's a really cool thing for me. That's a good little nugget to hold in my heart. It's just like, you ultimately can't control everybody. And that's, you know, and how the outcome is going to be. Yeah. So that was a good nugget.
Cool. I love it. Little notes of wisdom. Yeah, it is a delicate dance. And it's like, you'll notice the more and more you stand true in your sense of self, the more and more it gets easier to create these boundaries for yourself, to learn how to be soft with your boundaries, to learn how to be flexible with your boundaries. So let's lead into healthy boundaries. So healthy boundaries are, again, where you know your values, you know your sense of self, you know your sense of worth. Healthy boundaries are where you are being assertive, not aggressive. Healthy boundaries are, again, being flexible and being clear on what your responsibilities are, and not taking on other people's responsibilities. So again, those people-pleasing tendencies to take on others' responsibilities. Like one thing I have been telling myself in the last couple of years, not my monkey, not my monkey. Because like, I can definitely step in. Like, I see things really clearly, and I like to be able to help people. I have to know, like, you have to take help when people are asking for it. So it's like, you know, even when you see dysfunction, it's the beauty of being healthy is to step back and be like, you can see it, but you don't do anything about it, because it's their journey, it's their experience. And by you jumping in and doing the experience, well, then you're taking away from their own personal experience of growth and their journey. So that's a little bit of a hard one for me, but it's been getting better over these last years. And it's like, not my monkey, not my monkey, like control my monkey. What is it that I can do for myself?
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
But it's just like, it's being assertive, it's being flexible without overly compromising, because you don't want to overly compromise, because then you're pushing down your own needs, your own wants. But flexibility is beautiful. Meeting people like, oh, you see this person is really trying. Okay, well, guess what? Then here I can be a little bit flexible with this person, because I see that they're trying to make an effort. And guys, just like Peter Crone says, these patterns are insidious. These, you know, it takes time to truly, takes time and energy to work through our things, and to see yourself where you're at, and to know that sometimes you're going to fall backwards, but then you're going to get back up and you're going to keep on going. It's a delicate dance of balance.
Yeah. And, you know, I had something to say about the needs and wants that you have. Like, I think that if you're stepping from rigid, loose, or no boundaries into healthy boundaries, like a really great place to start, I would say, is even just figuring out what your needs and wants are. Because if you most likely have been in any of those places, like any of those boundaries, you know, places, rigid types, any of those types, if you've been any of those types before you enter into this new chapter of wanting to be a healthy boundary setter, like, you will probably need to identify what your needs and wants are, because most likely you have been like you have
told what to do. You've been
that, or you have not even acknowledged what your needs and wants are. You've just taken on everybody else's needs and wants, and so like you have no idea what you actually need and want, but you know what you can do for others' needs and wants really well. So 100%. I think that's like a huge first step, is like, okay, what do I need every day? Do I need to have my coffee with no disruption in the morning and my solitude? Do I need to meditate every day? Do I need to eat 3 meals a day? Do I need to like I'm just,
go to bed at this time.
Go to bed. Yes.
When you and your partner go to a party, you guys create a boundary. Okay, because like maybe one person likes to stay later, one person likes to leave early. You guys find, and I feel like I'm looking at you and Jonah, but it's like, so it's like creating that healthy compromise, that healthy boundary, that flexible boundary where you both are getting your needs met because you're in a partnership. And it's like, and not tapering over it. And also another way of boundary setting is like, okay, let's say you're in a relationship. Okay, you are not going to talk about your problems with your family members. You guys are going to, you guys are going to work through your own stuff together, and you're not going to talk about your problems because that can like muddy the waters, put up resentments, put up thoughts, things and ideas of who you are. So it's just like there's so many different forms, and yes, Bethany, it's like it's really just establishing and learning where you are at. And I like how you said all that because it was leading into like it was leading in for like from childhood we are taught how we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to behave. So we do have to, as we get into this journey of learning about self, we are learning that we're not actually ourselves. We are something that was molded and created by how we were taught to show up. So it's really breaking things down. And so it's just like, let's just, for example, so, from childhood, we are taught to bend and mold ourselves to make others comfortable. That's been like for, I would say, the majority of people in their lives. An example, hug the uncle that really makes you uncomfortable. Hug him because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to hug all your family members. And you can see that this child doesn't want to do it, but guess what? You're still making them do it. You are teaching that child to ignore their own needs, their own values, to put on a face for somebody else, to make sure that, she's a good girl or he's a good boy, like that. It starts early. So it's really tapping in and learning who you are as a person. And go ahead.
One cool thing just to highlight on that whole note is like that's a physical boundary. Like there's different that's a cool way to like tap into like so there's physical, emotional, and time boundaries,
material, workplace.
So there's like different areas of your life that you can have boundaries around. So that's even cooler to go into when you talk about your needs and wants. Like what would be cool is to be like, okay, here's my physical needs and wants. Here's my emotional needs and wants. Here's my workplace needs and wants. Here's, what I mean? Like, let's
get in. Let's just kind of get into that real quick, just to give the viewers a little idea. So, so there's different types of boundary setting. So emotional and mental. So let's just say you are in conflict with somebody, family, friend, loved one, whatever, and they start calling you names. And you tell them that, hey, when we are trying to get into conflict, when we are trying to work through something, I don't want to be called names. And if you call me a name again, I'm going to have to shut down this conversation and we're going to have to separate, because that is an emotional, mental boundary. I will not be called names during conflict. And it's a very, very valid way of creating a boundary. So you hope that person is going to listen. If they don't, you have every right to distance yourself from that type of person. If they are not going to honor that, that's really healthy to be able to walk away. And that's where you start to shed things from your life. Like if this person keeps disrupting your boundaries, and it's disrespect, like they're not respecting you. So that's an indicator. Okay, it's time to let this person go from my life. And you will notice when you start to set boundaries, you will lose people in your lives. And that again is an indicator that you are not expressing your needs. You are ignoring yourself to taper to this person. So just know that, yes, it does hurt to lose people, and we do crave connection and all these sorts of things. But when you let these people go, you are inviting in new, healthy energies of what is truly meant for you. That's just a little tidbit. That's just a little tidbit.
Yeah.
But okay, so the physical boundary. Yeah, physical boundary is I'm not much of a hugger. I'll shake hands, I'll wave, but I'm not really a big hugger. So that's a type of physical boundary. Sexual boundaries. I don't want to have sexual intimate. When you're starting a new relationship, before you have sex with this person, maybe you like to build an emotional connection with people before you get intimate. And that's okay. And if that's not something you do, that's okay too. Like whatever your own boundaries are, like that's okay. So learn your boundaries. But that's a thing to communicate with somebody. And somebody may honor that. Somebody may say, oh, well, that's not for me and leave you. Okay, the next person that comes in is, hopefully gonna respect that boundary of yours. Workplace boundaries, just how you show up in the workplace. Like maybe you like to keep things pretty, like you don't like to get too personal about your outside life. That's okay. There's a time and a place to let people in on your lives. So you set workplace boundaries. And then material boundaries are, you lend somebody something, you lend somebody your camper. Well, you have rules and stipulations of how that camper is to be treated. You need it cleaned afterwards. Like you communicate to this person, yeah, you can most definitely have my camper, but this is how I would like it returned. And time boundaries, how you honor your time and energy. So I just worked at a festival this weekend, and I knew that I had a big day of work on Saturday. So Friday night, I decided not to sleep there. I could have, but I didn't want to because I knew that the music was going to be going. I knew that I would be like hanging out with people. And I just knew that I would not be in my fully Zen mode, work mode, to be able to give the healing that I want to give to people, facilitate the healing for people. So I created a boundary for myself. And I left at like 8 o'clock, and I went home and I ate some food and I went to bed, and I got up the next day and boom, I had a wonderful day of work. And that was a really good boundary that I set for myself. Like the boundary setting doesn't just have to be for others. Boundary setting is for you too. Like you want to meditate in the morning. I like to meditate every morning. So I wake up and I start my day with a meditation. That's a boundary for myself. Oh, hey, I didn't do it this morning because we did a really early podcast episode. So I was a little bit flexible with myself. I'm going to meditate later. Because again, you can be flexible with yourself. If it's not disrupting you, if it's not making you feel resentful, that's when you know it's okay to be flexible. And just my last little boundary is the non-negotiable boundaries. So going into a relationship, if you are monogamous, that's a non-negotiable for you. You don't want to have other parties in your relationship. You want to be just monogamous. That's a non-negotiable. Or another little non-negotiable, again, like having, you're in a partnership with somebody, you don't want to unload your laundry, your dirty laundry, like your arguments with each other or whatever it is, like the things that you're working through. You want to keep that with the two of you. That's a non-negotiable. You're not going to put it out there with friends or family. That's totally valid. So those are just some types of boundaries.
I love it. And I think also just to say it is always about you first.
Yeah,
like you're never
100%.
you're never setting a boundary for somebody else. Like the
it's for you. It's for you.
Yeah, it's always for you. So unless you're doing it as a partnership, like as a relationship, but like then it's like for the both of you. Like
it's for the benefit of the relationship.
It's not for others. It's never for others. And that's probably what makes it feel the worst sometimes, is that it's like if you have that tendency to do things for others, like you will feel super conflicted about it because it is not for them. It is totally for you. It's totally to honor you. So that was beautiful to highlight all those different areas that you can set boundaries in, because it's like, it's quite a lot of your life that you could have boundaries in. And I love that you acknowledge the flexibility part and how to use the resentment as as a sign that, okay, I'm being flexible, but now I'm feeling resentful. So maybe I don't need to be, like, maybe I need to honor that more because it means a lot to me. And like, I'm giving into that flexibility in this area that is really important to me. So
Totally.
I think the resentment is a piece that I'm even learning right now. Like, okay, cool. Like if I feel that resentment about the fact that I just allowed this to happen in my life, and flexed on this thing that was important to me, like, okay, I needed to set a better boundary there. Like that's 100%. A really good tool. It's a good tool to tap into. Yeah.
And like, again, with that resentfulness too. And it's like, really, like we talked about it earlier, but I just want to kind of really highlight it again. It's just like, when you are feeling resentful and you really don't know why you're feeling resentful. Okay, maybe you struggle with communication. Maybe you are just expecting people to know your boundaries, know what it is that you want. So really kind of practice your communication skills, because that, like, boundary setting is all about communication. Communication is key. And then that resentment that creeps in, okay, well, something is happening within my body. Pay attention to those physiological signs. Do you start to feel you're getting irritated? Your heart is racing. You're starting to feel overwhelmed. Okay, let's soften. Let's try and communicate ourselves. What is it that is what is unspoken right now? Sit with it, lean into it.
Breathe into it, because most likely if you're in that dysregulated spot, you might be thinking like, how the hell am I going to just sit there and like think about it? Because I'm going to be thinking about how.
Yes, Bethany. Yes.
So it's
feel into it.
Yeah, and if you're really dysregulated, like go put your feet on the earth and like seriously breathe and like ground yourself, and or
do self-soothing, self-soothing, tapping onto the chest, tapping onto the arms, rubbing yourself. Like these are things that are going to co-regulate your body. That's going to calm your nervous system. There's so many tools. Let's bookmark that for just like another episode, because it just getting back into that body of being dysregulated. It's interesting.
And it might take a minute. It might take 5 minutes. It might take 10 minutes to like get regulated. But take that time so that then you can check in. Then you can inquire, why am I feeling resentful about this? Like, should I have set a deeper boundary? How can I set the deeper boundary from a loving place for myself? So I think that's like, because I can just picture myself being like spun out about something that I should have done or should have set a boundary, or I'm like pissed that I'm not,
for sure,
respecting myself. And so, how to regulate that. And like movement can be simple. Movement can just be walking. It can be breathing and inhaling your arms up, and then shaking, jumping. Like it could be so simple, but just like truly just getting back in the body and out of the mind is like the most important first step. And then once you're in that place, allowing the mind to just be able to think clearly and be able to think in a more regulated way is super important. But I
feel it. I was kind of reflecting in myself of a time that I was overwhelmed, and I was starting to feel all the physiological sensations. Heart was racing. I started to cry. I was trying to calm myself down, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go express myself. Unfortunately, it didn't land with everybody, and a lot of people were kind of confused when I did try to communicate myself. That's the thing. It's like communication can be hard, and like, I was overwhelmed, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go be vulnerable. I'm going to go show that I need some help. And even though it wasn't received, like, I'm still proud of myself for trying to communicate myself and express myself. But it was just like those physiological sensations were fucking crazy. Like I couldn't calm myself down. I couldn't even and know that it's like, guys, it's a journey. It is a journey of trying to learn how to express yourselves effectively and softly and with ease. So if it doesn't land, that's okay. Still pat yourself on your back for trying to be vulnerable and for trying to show up and express yourself the way that feels right for you. If it doesn't land, don't give up. Don't give up. Like keep trying, keep showing up a different way. Like, okay, that way didn't land. Okay, this person doesn't speak that language that you speak. So let's try and see how their language is spoken and see if you can find a little bit of flexibility and lean into your communication style, lean into their communication style. But ultimately, just know that it is a bit of a journey, and to find those people that do see you, just don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on the journey. It's you'll see that some days it may be harder than others, but hey, the next time you try and do it, maybe you fucking nail it. And it's a huge pat on the back just to speak up.
Yeah, totally it is. Yeah, because it's a vulnerable thing, and it's like a nerve-wracking thing, especially if you don't do it.
Yeah. Cool.
And not everybody has not everybody is in the emotional intelligence and awareness to like receive vulnerability. So there's always just that piece of it, and like just loving and respecting where they're at, because that is also their journey, and not everybody can receive you the way that you're meant to be received and want to be received.
You can only one thing too, it's like you can only meet people as far as they've met themselves as well. You know, like the depth. Like, you may be a really fucking deep person, like, you know, and you do crave this depth, but not everybody can give that to you. But you will find your people that can give you that depth, that can give you that. But it is where people are at on their journeys of emotional intelligence, and more people are waking up to the emotional intelligence. You know, we're getting at going back into like regulation of the body. We're not being as dissociated. We're not being as disconnected. More and more people are waking up. So just have faith that, you know, everybody will find themselves on the journey wherever they can. And just a little tidbit, it takes strength and courage to set boundaries. So really be proud of yourself for setting those boundaries. And if someone violates those boundaries, just know that it is okay to kind of reevaluate that relationship. You know, if they are constantly disrespecting your boundaries, okay, again, this is an indicator that this person is not really here for the journey. Maybe they served you in the journey thus far, but as you grow and evolve, you do lose people on the journey.
And I think if we're like heading towards wrapping this up, I do want to just like quickly brag on Courtney, because I am so proud of the boundaries and the ways that you've been setting them, and being vulnerable with those people that you love and taking the risks of putting those boundaries up. I really admire it a lot, because it does take a lot of courage. And so I do admire everybody. I really admire you because I know you, but I throw a kudos out to everybody out there that is doing the work to set the boundaries, because for me, it's something that's really hard. I definitely have like very blurred lines with my boundaries, and it's a really hard thing for me to be conscious of. So I just admire people that are like really conscious of it, really doing the work. Courtney, you're doing a fabulous job of it. I'm really proud of you, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I appreciate it. It's funny when you were like, Court, let's do an episode on boundaries. Like, you're killing it. I was like, what? I was like, you think so? But it's funny because like some days it's easier than others, and I have found myself like where I could be a little bit more on when I've gone from loose boundaries to rigid, because like I'm really have been trying to learn and find that sweet spot, that balance. But I have seen myself at times where it comes off assertive, where it comes off more of a harshness. So I'm really trying to lean in that softer side. So thank you for seeing me, Bethany, because I was like, some days I feel like it's that I'm not doing a good job, but you're right. It is showing
you're
up.
Doing it. Just period. You're doing it. Like, that's it. Like, it's better than, it's better than not doing it.
And I do appreciate that. So like when you saw me, I was like, okay, cool. It just shows that like, it can just show how like your sense, you know, I guess too, in my harsh critic, sometimes there's that pressure that it's like, oh, if it's not the best, then you're not doing anything. So it's just nice to like see an outside's perspective of being like, oh, Court, you are doing this. Like, you are showing up, you know. So it's just like being gentle on yourself. One of my biggest mottos: be gentle on yourself along the way. Cool.
Thanks. Because to that note, like if you're not being gentle on yourself, like,
Yeah.
and you're being harsh on the inside, then like that harshness will come out no matter how hard you try to be gentle to others. Like, and that's your intention. Like if consciously or subconsciously you're being really harsh on yourself, then like that, no matter what, is going to be what comes out in the words and energy that you have towards others. Like, and it will be unavoidable because it's the program that's running in your consciousness regarding yourself first. And we do come first, no matter how much we really think we don't, we do. So like, yeah. So
that's a beautiful nugget, Bethany. That the way that you said that, like, it's true. It really, it starts with self. Like, if you're noticing these things, like this harshness, this aggressiveness, okay, let's get back into the inner world and see what's going on in here. Like anytime this, because like we project what we are feeling on the inside. So it's like, if you're feeling muddled, if you're feeling harsh, if you're feeling disconnected, well, that's what's going to be shined outwards. So really just like sit with yourself, journal with yourself, dance with yourself, and see yourself for where you're at and just be gentle along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I love it. And then one thing I wanted to say before we ended too is that when I was like couple years, actually quite a few years ago, just learning about boundaries, I got turned on to this psychologist called she calls herself the Boundary Boss, Terri Cole, TerriCole. And she wrote the book, The Boundary Boss. And she does a really great job of dissecting, like, A, the ways that boundaries show up, B, how you may have gotten here in your life and why you don't have boundaries. And then C, like tools to help you create boundaries. So like I found that book like really, I actually didn't finish it. I'll just be honest. But I was doing a lot of good, like, work with it, and like really I'm a listener to books, so she has it on Audible, and then you can also buy it if you want. And she has a podcast. I cannot remember. I think it's just the Terri Cole show. I don't think it's called Boundary Boss. But it might be. But anyways, you can find her that way too. So she's got a lot of great information just specifically on boundaries that I find is like really healthy and relatable information. And she's got just a great way to like communicate it. So if anybody wants like a resource or a tool to go out and try to learn from, she's a cool resource. Yeah. I like her stuff. Yeah.
And I'll throw in another resource, because she has been somebody that like has been my journey of really kind of tapping into self. Dr. Nicole Lepera, the holistic psychologist. You'll find her on Instagram. She also has a self-healers course with so much like self-healing wisdom, but like with all these videos from her and her other co-workers and whatnot. But I mean, there are so many different resources. Terri Cole, Dr. Nicole Lepera, find your people, because what works for one may not work for the other. But there is so much infinite wisdom and nuggets and all that good shit out in the fucking universe. It's beautiful. I love it.
Actually, and we'll link it. We'll link those too.
I'm gonna link them.
Yeah. Cool. So you guys can easily find them. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Sweet. Is there anything else we should say? Do you have
okay? I just want to. I got a question to ask you.
Me.
What have you been learning lately?
Oh man. I've been learning more about my family the last couple of days.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Yeah, I was like, I really haven't like learned anything, like, because I've just been like truly in family mode. But like, I've just been like, I'm really like not learning stories or information, but like learning about them from like an observational, like, oh, I never realized they did this, or like, oh, this is cool how they wake up and like to do this, or like just like their ways, you know what I mean? Like, that's like learning about their being.
Yeah,
you know?
I love that.
Yeah.
And also like that kind of tie in with boundaries. Like you're like, okay, you're seeing like these are these things that they like to do for themselves, the sense of self. So, and that's it's the projector in you. You're sitting back and you're observing.
Yeah, it's fun. It's been fun. Yeah. Yeah. What's calling to your soul today?
What's calling to my soul?
Or in this moment?
Well, I'm excited to lean into learning about Mackenzie. We're actually doing a double episode today, and we're going to be chatting with Bethany's sister, Mackenzie. So my soul is kind of just getting curious for tapping into her energy and seeing what she has to present to herself. So that's what my soul is kind of speaking to.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's going to be really potent, everybody.
I feel
We've got some really good stuff coming out. Yeah, we got some really good interviews coming out. I'm super excited.
Oh, yeah, we really do.
Yeah, we have quite a few lined up. Yeah, and then like also just real quick about my family. Like I got to ride with my mom and my sister for 5 hours in the car the other day to drive down here. So I was like loaded, ready to go.
That's awesome.
So it was great though. It was so beautiful. Like I got to ask them what was on the forefront of their minds and their hearts, and we got to like expand on that. And so it was just like a really beautiful, intimate car ride with my mom and sister that I haven't had. Yeah, I haven't had in a long time. Like I don't even know when the last time that was. So it's just been really nice to like connect with them and be able to ask them questions and, do the real life podcast.
I love it. You're just kind of, you're feeling into who they are, what they are, and you're together. It's togetherness. It's special. Very cool.
Yeah, it is. It's been really special.
I'm excited for that. Okay, cool.
All right.
Let's end it. So thank you for another episode of Collecting Consciousness. Guys, please like and subscribe. Send this on to anybody that feels right for you. Again, word of mouth is how this gets out there to the universe. So we would really love if you shared it with people. So have a great day and see where you're at on your boundary setting. Hold space for where you're at.
And share with us. We have an Instagram page now, Collecting Consciousness Podcast, at Collecting Consciousness Podcast. So if you go to our Instagram and you want to DM us a special message about any of the episodes that you like felt touched you, or you have something that you want to expand on, like we're here for it. Like if you want to or if you want to correct us on anything, like if you have anything that you want to share that you feel like, is important or is on your heart, like you can send it that way. If you don't want to comment on the YouTube video or on the main page, like definitely you can get a hold of us privately on the Instagram. So feel free to reach out to us. Like we want to hear from you. We love you. And we just want to connect and collect. And that's what it's all about. So,
fuck yeah. Cool. Love it. Good job.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. All right.
Till next time.
Which is tonight.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.